We're going to have some fun. We met each other prior to this. We did a Zoom call to get to kind of know each other, and then we met for breakfast, and we're all like, we can't wait to get up here and share. I had a lot of fun, so I'm looking forward to this. Okay, so leading in a hybrid marketplace. One of our biggest challenges today, especially after the pandemic, it certainly changed the game, didn't it? Would you agree that it changed the game of work and the environments that we do our work in? So now we have to rise to this challenge of always being in sort of this hybrid marketplace. And we have people that are go back to the office. We hear it every day. Companies and government agencies are saying, nope, time to come back. But even with that, we know there's going to be a certain number of hybrid environments that we need to lead in. And certainly it has its challenges. So again, my name is Rob Swimer. I'm the moderator. I get to serve as the moderator. I'm so pleased to do that. And I am the founder of Peak State Performance. My job, I go around the globe as a speaker to activate leadership and teams and companies and individuals to be in a peak state in life and business. I do that with body movement, breath work, and manifesting your goals. And really I got into that because of my post in London during COVID, and we'll talk more about that, and where I had to actually lead a country over Zoom for 2 years. But we'll get more into that. I want to get to the panel. So before we get started, if we can just do kind of introductions. Beth, why don't you go first?
Sure, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me, and it's great to see you all here today. I'm Beth Mack. I'm the co-founder and COO of a company called Spacely. It's revolutionizing how media is bought and sold. So it's the first AI-powered private marketplace for physical media. So that's print, out-of-home, sponsorships, and so on. And basically what we're doing is, like I said, revolutionizing how it's bought and sold. We are matching people, sellers and buyers together via AI. We are helping sellers increase their revenue by automating tasks, understanding market demand, and really creating an environment that's actually one that people want to be in. It's become no fun over the last few years, especially with the COVID world.
Right.
You know, it's really made a big difference in how buyers and sellers really work with one another. So,
Thank you. I know you're making a huge impact, and we appreciate that. Matt, you're next.
Yeah, my name is... Check. This one work? Perfect.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. So my name is Matt Lay. I'm co-founder of IPN Advisors. It stands for Inflection Point Nexus. What we do is we work with organizations. Everything is in the midst of change, and when you're in that change, particularly like growth, you hit inflection points where what got you here isn't going to get you there. And that tends to show up in two areas: organizational health, your culture, organizational design, and in your operational excellence. So how we get things done. The nexus point where those two things meet, that's what we do. We help organizations at those points of change, things like COVID or moving to hybrid and remote. How do you manage that so you can continue to build on the success and help people find fulfillment and joy in the work that they're still doing?
Thank you, Matt. Caitlin?
Hi there. My name is Caitlin. I come from the great state of Maine. I've had some blank stares when I've said that at this conference. So we're the southernmost Canadian province. So I'm the co-founder of Magenta Fusion Brandworks. We work with businesses of all sizes and stages across the country on brand development and social media and digital marketing. I was a very early adopter in this space. I have Pinterest account number 7, so I can literally never delete that app off my phone. And I fell into this accidentally, and so did my microphone. I fell into this space accidentally. It began as a side hustle, helping out some Etsy and Shopify sellers, because these were incredible, they were women, incredible artisans who couldn't necessarily run a business. And about 5 years into that, I had helped them achieve $13.5 million of sales. Average sale order under $30. So that's when I said, I think the side hustle could be a thing, and we turned it into our full-time proper company.
Wow, what a great story. Elizabeth, and some of you have already seen Elizabeth speak. She's doing some great work with teaching kids how to code with Coco. Tell us more.
Thank you. I'm Elizabeth Tweedale, a CEO of Coco Coders. We're revolutionizing education by starting with teaching children about technology, AI literacy, how to code, or actually how to ask the AI how to code. But you have to understand the fundamentals first. So I've previously built AI in the prop tech space. So if you're in property technology, it's very exciting. If you're not, it's sort of boring. But I wrote the AI before AI was cool and was a thing, and before all these chat GPT things came out. So I've really seen the evolution of how this whole hype has come about, and also while doing that, transitioning a team that was fully in person, teaching kids in real life, remotely, and then what that all means. So I'm excited to talk about that with you guys today. But if any of you guys have kids age 6 to 14, check out Coco Coders, and I'll pass it back to you.
Awesome, great. James, it's what, 30 years in the salon business, for something completely different now, and now moved into technology in the salon business. Tell us about your story.
Yeah, so my dad said never trust a bald-headed hairdresser, and I said you'd be surprised. So yeah, my story is about 30 years. I've been in the hair industry, started off as a stylist right out of high school, and I'm very passionate about that program because it literally changed and saved my life. I spent 30 years, first off 13 as a management in salon management, and then from there went into technology for 18 years, and found myself at age a little over 50 where the company was sold, or was to another company with the intention to kill it. So I had to find another way. So I found coaching, and coaching to me was the thing that matched my lifestyle and matched my mission. And so I was able to find Focal Point. And so mine is Focal Point 303. We focus on salon, spa, and barbershop owners, helping them grow. But we also work with many small businesses and authors. But thank you.
Yeah, fantastic. So I want to level set with a question. First of all, we've been talking for a little while, all of us, and getting to know each other. And there was a common theme that came up about how to actually lead in this hybrid marketplace and what was the most important. And it all came back to trust. And it's no surprise, I'm sure everybody out here is thinking the same thing, that you have to build that trust when whether you're remote or not, but surely in a remote environment, it's even so much more important. So I want to ask each of you sort of, how do you build that trust? What special sauce do you all have in building the trust with your teams, especially in leading from afar in this hybrid marketplace? And start with that. James, why don't you go first?
Yeah, so I have a team of about 4 developers, and I do work with a marketing and another VA, and I have to trust each and every one of them. If I don't trust them, I have to call them more. I have to talk to them more. The whole idea is that we all have a job to do. Everybody knows what that job is, and by the time we wake up, we literally meet for 15 to 45 minutes a day. That's it. We don't have extra meetings because why? Time zone. I'm asleep. I'm not waking up. But trust is a huge factor in that, and the reason why we establish trust is to have more effective communication.
That's fantastic. Elizabeth, how do you go about doing that?
Well, I have a team of about 10, and then we have 65 teachers that work for us. And I think the thing that's most successful is that 15-minute-a-day check-in with the team. Our team's fully remote, which of course means that we can, teach people from all over the world. But understanding those personal relationships that we used to get in the office is a very difficult thing to do over Zoom if you haven't experienced it before. So one of my biggest learning experiences post-COVID was that those of us that were in the generation of talking, while we're getting our coffee in the office, understand the value of those little antics that you take away. What did you do this weekend? It sounds really weird to ask that over Zoom at first, but young people that haven't had that are just entering the workforce, which I have a lot of working for me, find it very strange to open up over Zoom. So how do we actually break down those barriers and have those slow, meaningless conversations over Zoom? And the answer is, I think, just prioritizing it, but thinking about the real and the virtual. And I know it sounds silly, but marrying up those two things. Let's do the same thing online that we did in the office space, and then go about our days the rest of the way.
Yeah, I mean, the realistic issue is that business is a human game. We all know that. And we have got to make those human connections for us to be successful as a team and to thrive. So that's a great point what you're doing. We have to, the new normal, if you will, and that's what's going to happen here. We have to make sure that we keep true to that. So
And
very good.
across the generations, which, 5 generations in the
Yeah.
workforce, we're all approaching technology differently.
Exactly. I spoke last week to a startup company out in the Valley, and they referred to their employees as COVID babies. And so that's a new term now, so write it down, COVID babies.
They would be like 5.
Yeah, no, right. But, yeah.
These are very advanced employees.
Yeah.
They're still coding, though.
Snack break.
They actually,
They're coding.
yeah, would you believe that?
That's why they're hired.
These are employees that would interview over Zoom, they would join a company over Zoom, and they would be trained over Zoom, and they would work over Zoom or virtual. So, yeah, COVID babies is the new term. So go ahead, Caitlin.
I think since I'm quite literally the middle of the answer to this question, I think we should also take a step back and understand that trust is not the same thing as blind faith. I think that's super important
Good point.
here. I build up teams for companies. A lot of times what we do is we either build up remotely their marketing team and then ultimately transition over to them, or we end up just leading it the whole time depending on their preference. But like if you have 2 employees, right, and they both take way too long to do the same things that need to be done, one of them might be taking way too long because this person just cares so deeply, like forest through the trees, is really getting bogged down because they want to do it right. They might not understand the technology, resources available to them, okay? And the other one is the virtual nightmare. And they are scrolling on TikTok and gaming for 4.5 hours, write 15 minutes worth of emails and go, I did it. So we can work with person A. 95% of the time, person A, you can work with them. You can work with them, you can train them, and get them where they need to go. Person B, you should try, you should do that. Maybe they're not going to be a good fit. So I really think trust is something that can be achieved, worked towards, earned, but you also have to know at times when you're like, this isn't working. And if you know that, we're talking about managing, leading, knowing that is also going to greatly help this virtual team.
Yeah, the difference between managing and leading, what you just said, right? We're going to
Exactly.
get back to that because I like that comment about,
Thanks.
and also, how do we have difficult conversations on a virtual stage? That's it, very performance management. How many people are involved in performance management or have had difficult conversations in their career? How do we do that over Zoom? So we'll get back to that. I'll make a note. Go ahead, Matt.
See if this one, all right, this one works now. I love the comments. The hard part is the human part. That doesn't change when you go virtual. The thing is you're in a new context. So what are the principles that worked in person? How do you translate those into a new environment? So one, I'll say on the trust piece, Dr. Henry Cloud wrote a really good book called Trust a couple of years ago where he breaks that down into principles. And one of the 5 pieces is you have to have a track record. And so you have to be able to show what is it that you're actually here to do. And what I do when I work with clients is I have a pretty simple sort of litmus test to say, if you're doing these things called the 4 C's, that's the foundation of trust. If you can show people that you care, you give them clarity, you stay consistent, and then you communicate, and then you communicate, and then you communicate. It really should be over communication, but alliteration is important, so we're going to keep it just communication. But really, it's about the time you get tired of saying something that people start to hear it. And we think when we're in a virtual environment, we just have to say it, and people are going to get it. And the other part is what I love that the concept of the platinum rule over the golden rule. Golden rule, treat people the way you want to be treated. Platinum rule, treat people the way they want to be treated. With the different generations, when you're working remotely, you're probably working with people in different either time zones or cultural context. What is it like for them? What does care look like for them? Don't make assumptions about that. Get into the relationship. And I love, Elizabeth, the point about that water cooler talk. One of my big recommendations is start every Zoom call with a check-in question that has nothing to do with the work you're doing. And the more off the wall, the better. Like, what's the last terrible Netflix show you watched and that you watched all the way through? And why did you watch it all the way through? Just get people to talk
had to
about
see the end.
themselves. Yeah. And it's that type of, that you think is like, oh, we've got 30 minutes, we got to get right to the work. The work becomes draining when you don't build the human connection.
Yeah.
And so you've got to make time for that if you're moving into that hybrid remote environment.
Yeah, well said. Yeah.
Okay, well, you guys took all of mine. No.
took all the good stuff.
Yeah, all the good stuff. But the 4 C's, I couldn't agree with you more, honestly. And I think the first one for me has always been the biggest is care. And truly understanding and taking a moment to know your people. To your point, too, you have 30 minutes, you need to get through. However, that 30 minutes is actually going to create such a huge bond that they will do more for you. They will do more for the business because they want to do more for themselves, because they know you've got their back somehow, some way. And I also agree, communication is so critical. That does not mean more emails. It doesn't mean more text messages. I mean, it might. However, sometimes actually picking up the phone, and yes, I am of the generation that I still use it like this versus like this or something else that's kind of feels like a phone. I mean, honestly, they really appreciate it, especially on a global level. When you've got people that are in 7, 8, 12, 13-hour time differences, you picking up the phone when they're awake versus you expecting them to answer you when you're awake makes a huge difference. So there's some sacrifice on both sides of the equation. And I encourage everybody to kind of pressure test that and also teach your every level and every entry, every level as they come in to have that level of empathy and care and curiosity to be able to do that. It will go a long way and you'll see your business transform.
I just want to know, do you have a flip phone? Is that what you're advocating, to bring the flip phone back?
Well, I don't know. It's confusing because now it's also can be like this. I don't know. Yeah, it's weird. So I'm going back to old school.
I like it.
So, okay, before we move on, Rob, since you're our moderator, but you don't always get to answer all the questions,
It's okay.
tell us how does it transform or how does it come to life for you?
Yeah. Well, I think, first of all, the word care came up a lot. And I think care transcends generations, and care transcends cultures. And it's not just the words, it's the actions that you lead with. So my experience is that you have to base it on servant leadership principles. And that is that you go in to give versus get. When I changed my mindset to give versus get, everything changed for me in my career. And that is leading the person, not just the employee. It's really important. I did things like gratitude exercises every morning at 7 a.m., even though they were over Zoom. I was there at 7 a.m. for 15 minutes to lead a gratitude exercise to make sure that our day was started in the right mindset. I focused on the individual's health and well-being, and that was really important, especially during COVID, but I went through that process well before COVID and after. And I think that that's the whole idea behind it, and now I specialize in that. Now I go into teams and actually teach how to do that. And that is a game changer because people react to that. They know you're being authentic and they know that you care. And the other thing that's important in my experience is that you have to be, and it was brought up, consistent in your language. So I was taught, I think one of the best things I've ever learned in my life is the triad of influence, and it's about what we focus on. Do we focus on the negative, or we focus on the positive? Do we focus on the future, where we want to go, or the past? And the language that we use, do we use language that is positive and it's uplifting and empowering? And what's our physiology? So I became a student of the neuroscience of leadership, and now I'm all about the physiology of how we show up as leaders. And over Zoom, you can actually do that, and it's proven. And I've done it, and I've lived that, and I've breathed that now for over a decade. The neuroscience backs it up. Cultures are more, they're actively engaged, and when they're actively engaged, studies show they're more profitable. So these are all things that used to be woo-woo. We're talking about a lot of that stuff that's kind of, but now it's a need to have, and it's something that people are reacting to in a very positive way. So I think it's really a common theme. So I appreciate all the comments that you all made. I appreciate it very much. I think we're making good headway here. So James, you've got over 30 years in the salon business, and if you could mark one trait of the most important strategies of sort of that remote team, and you were doing remote, but 25 years ago?
Actually, in 2008. So
2008,
that's
okay.
when I first went remote. Yeah.
So what's the if you had just one thing that stood out to you, what was the strategy that made it happen for you and got you results?
Yeah, so it's autonomy, right? You have to give your team autonomy. You have to allow them to self-organize. And as a matter of fact, this panel is a great example of self-organization and being agile, because we were, like other panelists, given an email that said, you guys meet each other and figure it out. And we did. And so I think autonomy was a huge trait that is very important in a remote workplace. And then it's routine, right? It's the ceremonial things that happen, and it's the routine. So those are the two things I would say.
Well done, well done. Beth, you're in a global basis as well, and always remote, and you're in a technology space. How do you marry both the leadership of a remote team that's global, literally all around the world, while trying to manage the technology and the, obviously, explosion of what we're seeing out here in technology? Of course, Elizabeth talks about that a lot, we all do, but yeah.
Well, I think the beautiful thing about technology is that you can do it from anywhere, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Taking that forward, that gives you a lot of autonomy. It does give you a lot of opportunity to go and be. And what's funny is, yes, we are all remote. At Spacely, we have four folks internally, but we also have developers all over the world. And so what I've done is I've actually gone to Joburg, I've gone to Krakow, I've gone to a couple of other geographical locations, London, whatever, West Coast. And I actually just show up. And sometimes showing up just means, hey, I'm in town. How about we all get together? Because I know y'all live in this area. Let's just go get coffee. And people kind of lose their minds. Like, they're like, holy crap, you actually came to me? Again, I know I'm like kind of preaching on this care piece of it, but in a day and age when you can hide behind a screen, you can't, because that's not where all of the relationships and the depth of relationships come to be. And again, yes, some people do love to sit behind. I've worked in the development world for quite some time, and the engineers and even product managers, they've been working remote like their entire lives, right? So they don't know this. Yeah, exactly. They don't know any different.
Yeah, they're used to it, yeah.
So it's also us who do feel things differently or have experienced things differently, us actually learning how to do it like they've done it their entire careers. So again, it's not us versus them, it's just everybody really having an understanding of how it works, and it can work. And we have proven that time and time again over not only the last 5 years, but over the last forever years of, being able to do everything remotely. You just got to get over some of those preconceived notions of what that means for different businesses and different categories.
And it is how we show up, and I love that what you just said. That's perfect, and you need to balance that. And so, Caitlin, how do you want that company mission and autonomy, and you want to make sure we're all marching toward the same value statement or mission statement, right? How do you balance those two? Where you want autonomy, and James talked about that, the trust. How do you balance that and make sure in a remote environment you're getting both?
Yeah, I think the key there is providing the framework and the guidance without micromanaging. You want your team to like what they do. You want them to take pride in their work, but you have to just keep that mission in mind. So I think one of the best ways to do this is through, I like to say, SOPs written in pencil, not pen. I mean, I build virtual teams on the regular. 10 out of 10 don't recommend, by the way. When you're starting ground up every single time, you have to be a lunatic like me to find that fun. But for your own company, having those SOPs is incredibly helpful. If you're hiring someone from a job, you probably want to know what job you're hiring them for, right? But you're also hiring them for a reason. So this is what I want done. This is where I want it to go. Do you have thoughts on how to do this? And as you're working, having that ebb and flow where you're giving them their creativity and the space to be in their zone of genius while still within your rubric. And I think that is the balance right there. And at the end of the day, if they are then doing work that they are proud of for your mission, you both win.
Yeah, wonderful, awesome, I love that. Matt, you wrote a book about management versus leadership.
A great book.
Great book.
My copy's autographed.
I love that. We're both, we have something in common. We're both authors, and I know your book is wonderful. And tell us about the strategies of the remote and how it applies to your principles in your book.
The book is called Manage Your Gaps, Reclaiming the Awesomeness of Management. And it's really looking at how management shows up throughout the entire organizational design to the tactical layer of actually doing the work to the operational level of answering the question, if teamwork makes the dream work, what makes the team work? And how that transitions from the in-person to the hybrid remote arena, Caitlin nailed it on the head. I mean, SOPs are close to my heart. Like any of that stuff that you can create that scaffolding where it's not restrictive, locking you down, you have to do things this way unless there's a piece that you actually have to. Being explicit versus implicit is the big difference, especially when you're in remote where you don't have those touch points of like, hey, I need to ask a quick question. It's the ability to help give people that guidance. And so one of the cores of the management book that I wrote is this epic management model, which is basically saying, here's what management is. It's in setting up the environment, helping determine success, so performance, understanding identity, and then learning how to communicate with people. And understanding those principles is really what unlocks the ability for managers to do their job in person and remote, but especially remote because managers are your culture champions. So leadership helps define what your culture is. Who lives out that culture and has the touch point of actually interacting with your people on a regular basis are your managers. And I will tell you, hybrid work is the most difficult space for managers because you're managing in person and remotely. And I've done that before, and it is exhausting, especially when you don't have that structure set up. So helping really build the structure for the scaffolding of what this work is helps your managers be what they're supposed to be, which is multipliers of the work that's getting done. They're not there for addition. One of my favorite statements is managers are non-value add, non-leaders. That's because leaders define the future, managers refine the now, and their job is to multiply the effects of the people on their team. But when you double down on them and push on them, what they do most of the time is they trend towards being individual contributors and adding value through their own individual work, which will burn them out, and their teams will feel left abandoned because they're not being communicated with. So really helping set up that structure so your managers understand their role and the culture of your organization so that they can imbue those same principles to all the people on their team would be the way to leverage that.
Yeah, well said. And Elizabeth, you were smiling the whole time. I know you've got a few hundred people that are remote across the pond and all over the world. So how do you balance that with your corporate mission and make sure they're all aligned, but autonomy obviously going, but how do you get them on the same page in a remote environment?
Well, I think for us, the same page comes down to those small group interactions. And, you know, as any team does, even within big corporate organizations or startups, you get bigger, you get smaller teams, team sizes are always changing, and that's very difficult to work with online. So you can, you know, leverage the technology. We use breakout rooms. That water cooler, which I think I said coffee chat, which was not the thing, it was the water cooler chat, but the water cooler chat works well with 3 or 4. As soon as you get actually all 6 of us around a water, it gets awkward, which is why this is weird that it worked so well with our personalities. But using breakout rooms to kind of force those small interactions has worked really well for us. The same principles apply for teaching, and that's what we found in virtual classrooms, which I think we can then, you know, take to our virtual work lives, is that if you have a private tutor teaching a coding lesson, it's great, the kid likes it, the teacher's happy, but you get 3 or 4 kids in a virtual room together and a teacher, and something magical starts to happen. I mean, I just got goosebumps because they feed off of each other. They can ask each other questions. And so managing that online room size, I think, can be very important, and we can take a lot from, instead of having, you know, a room of 100 people and nobody has their screens on, it's a problem. But my second point, just really quickly, is the screens on. I think my husband also has a startup that, you know, his team's all remote. I kind of peek around sometimes and I see their Zoom calls. There's 20 people on the call, maybe 2 people have their cameras on. Their team does not have the camaraderie that we do, that even if somebody's sitting on a beach because they're on holiday, fine, turn on your screen. Somebody looks terrible and their hair is like out to here, fine, turn on your screen. But we're all human, and I truly believe that having that video interaction actually is probably the key to all of it.
I couldn't agree more. I know that I had the pleasure of leading the UK and I for a multi-billion-dollar software company, and I got there 3 weeks before COVID. So I had to figure out in a country I'd never been in a team I've never met, how to lead that country over Zoom for 2 years. And I had the same experience. It was an awesome experience, by the way. I learned a lot. But I will tell you that there were times where I had to stop, and I always stopped, and I would say the cameras have to be on. And I would say things like, I don't care if your cat's running over the keyboard or your kids are in the background at school. In fact, when they had little ones, I would invite them to the meeting, put them on their lap, and we wanted to meet them, and we'd all kind of have a great time with the babies and the kids. We were family, and I think that that's the difference, is that you have to treat your employees, the people that you lead, the people under your charge, are really our family. It's what we do, and our job sometimes does define who we are. Unfortunately, it does happen like that, and we have a lot of time during the day that we're in front of people that we work with, so we have to make the best of it. And business is a human game, and we have to be mindful of that. So I love that you brought that up, and it sort of triggered my memory of making sure I just would stop the meeting and say, wait, I've got 3 people off camera. I don't really care where you are. They'd be in their car, walking the dog in the park. It didn't matter. And that was okay. You had to also be in a safe place. Let's talk about that for a minute. So, yeah, I'm sure you want to. So I'm going off script, obviously. I want to talk about, yeah. So this is important because this is the cool part, right? How do you develop a safe place in a virtual world? That's really important. It's not easy to do, right? So I know you're not prepared for this. This is off the cuff, but
If I can just
Yeah.
do a quick
Go ahead,
safe
sure.
one, because
Yeah.
we teach children online and they all have their cameras on. My biggest, safety is a concern moment was right at the beginning of COVID. We had transitioned all of our in-person camps online, and all the cameras were on, and this mother was breastfeeding on the camera on Zoom, which I had a small baby at the time as well, so fully understood. But there were other children in the virtual room, and this was a huge eye-opener for me because I was like, okay, safety in an online environment
Right.
is a big deal,
Right.
and what do we do with it? So for,
what did you do with it?
well,
We all want to know.
we wrote an email to the mother, and we just asked her politely to turn off the camera if she was
Okay.
breastfeeding her
A lot of
her
questions
baby.
have to be answered at that point, yeah.
But a lot of the kind of safety issues with an online presence came about from that, and so then we had to put processes in place to understand if you're turning off your camera to blow your nose or do something like that, totally fine. So for us, it's kind of balancing the ability to go on and off the
Sure.
computer, but also knowing in terms of a safety net for your team, because we use Discord, it's sort of like Slack, that you can go offline. I remember the early days of COVID when you felt like that little boop boop, boop boop,
Yeah.
boop boop, and you'd hear it and you might be like going to get a bowl of cereal and you're like, oh no, I'm not in my computer. That it's fine to have those breaks from the computer, and I think that's a big part of creating a safety net for your team is the ability to shut down.
Yeah, that's the consistent language, right, as a leader, not just a manager, right? So that's important. Yeah, you wanted to say something? Beth?
Yeah, so, I mean, I love that we've transitioned into this because there's a huge, there's a huge element of even feeling equal to someone else. So prior to starting Spacely, I was on the corporate side, and I started, October of 2020, and it was 100% virtual, and everybody was all over the country. And, okay, so that's hard enough, right? We all know that. But when you could see people's backgrounds, you could see where they're either sitting or laying, or people running behind, or the cat, or whatever, and you're on with the CEO, how do you help create like some level of professionalism, but also some level of, my background didn't look like the CEO's. The CEO had a gajillion-dollar house, and I'm in an apartment, right? So what we did is, and we kind of fell into this. Honestly, we didn't like plan it this way. It just kind of happened. We actually had a contest inside of the organization to build out your own personalized background, but it had to be promoted with the name of the company. So it was great because you saw the personalities of people come out, but you could feel a bit of like a virtual exhale, that you didn't feel like you were in competition with someone, not because of your skill, but because of what was behind you and where you were. So it was just an incredible show of how people went, oh, okay, now I can actually get back to the work and not have to worry about the bookcase being perfect or, the guitars hanging on the back wall, right? Like all the effects. It really helped kind of normalize and equalize and kind of just gave a chill over the company in a very, very positive way.
Can I also expand upon that, because I love what you said, and talk about how safety covers the elements you're both talking about, but it also covers the relationship you have with those you're leading and building that culture. I think we all understand that emails they don't have inflection or tone. So depending on how you're reading, the exact same email can come off extremely differently. To Elizabeth's point, when you're in, let's say every meeting is a staff meeting with Zoom and it's 5, 10, 15, gajillion, I don't care how many people are in it, that's also different. So I think it's important having some of that, enough of that one-on-one relationship with each person. They do not all have to be your best friends. In fact, we could have a whole nother panel on why they probably shouldn't be your best friends. But having that, so when they have concerns, or if they have great ideas or great feedback, having that safety feeling that they can come to you and express good or bad, whatever it is, on a one-on-one. And that's really important.
Yeah, I'll just, sorry, I'll jump on that. I think one of the really big things is building that relationship and building that to structure, and you're working with adults. And so I think that's one of the things you have to step away from paternalism of treating people like, we got to make sure we set up everything, they're out of my sight, I need to make sure everything is documented. Give them the structure, and then if you want to really work on safety, a real quick one, I guess the letter C is my favorite letter today, but when you're doing cultures trending in a direction, the question is, what do you do when people step outside your expectations or the results? Do you address them with critique, or do you address them with curiosity? And if you do that consistently, addressing with curiosity, you will trend your culture in a positive direction. But we have a lot of times where we're like, well, we set standards, we've got to hold people accountable, and we overemphasize and we build rules around rules around rules, and we don't allow people the autonomy to be human and to bring that wholeness of themselves to the table. And I also guess I'll be the book recommendation person, but there's a great book that operationalizes psychological safety called The 4 Stages of Psychological Safety by Timothy R. Clark. Highly recommend it. He's got 4 stages that help you really understand what does it actually look like. We use this term a lot, but what does it look like in practice? It's a great tool, so I recommend that.
Well done. James, did you?
Yeah, just to add to that, I'm Cracking the Rich Code, Volume 15. I'm an author. Please pick it up. Sorry about that. But in terms of safety, and the biggest thing is evolution. Your company evolves, right? And so if you're so rigid that you don't evolve with that, then you do lose quality people over the fact that you didn't have the right background, right? So I actually have a different approach with my team. We don't do cameras, mainly because the internet. But we've established this, we know it, and we basically, I lay out some really big, high, lofty goals in the beginning of the call. And then I'll interrupt, or not, hey, show me that one more time. And then by the end of the call, they're summarizing it, and we're going on to the next day. So I think remaining flexible, remaining personable, making sure that they understand that we're all in this together. I think that's the key piece for me. Yeah.
I agree. And we're citing books. Paul Zak is a neuroscience that I've done a lot of work with. It's called The Trust Factor. Go ahead and get that book. It's all about how oxytocin is a really good chemical to release for your team. I have a talk that I do around the world called Love in Business is a Competitive Advantage. Of course, I don't mean love like our partners and our spouses, but it is the oxytocin hormone. So activating that hormone with the words we use and the physiology that we bring to our leadership principles is really important. And that will foster safety. It will foster collaboration. It will foster all of those good things we're trying to get from our teams as we march toward a common vision. So,
and I just want to say that so can those tech oops moments. Like you brought up, like the cat walking across the screen.
Yeah.
One of the teams I lead, the person who's on it has this massive fluffy cat whose name is John Cena, by the way. And one day, I don't know why, it's a bright orange long-haired cat. So one day John Cena walked across the screen and she was horrified. She was mortified that she had left the door open and John Cena just snuck in there. So But now, if ever we're on meetings, and if anyone on the team, not just her, if anyone is like, it's their turn to talk and they don't know what to answer, they're like, John Cena, get over here. Like, they're looking for that distraction moment.
That's great.
But it's all because John Cena ran in front of that camera 2 years ago,
Yeah.
and that cat will now live on for perpetuity and has created culture for us.
And I think your response was more important. Like the
Yes.
fact that you didn't freak out, the fact that you didn't
Exactly.
scold, the fact you didn't do that parenting, I think that's what helped.
I've got 4 kids. I got enough parenting to do. I reached for my phone and began texting John Cena memes. That's what I did.
Did you go like this?
Well, we all know vulnerability is one of the aspects that builds trust. I mean, you obviously talk about that in your book, and it's important. I mean, being vulnerable as leaders, being authentic and vulnerable as leaders is really important because it does bring in that aspect and builds that trust. So before we wrap up, how can we get a hold of each of you? So start with James. How can people get a hold of you and learn more?
Yeah, focalpoint303.com. So focalpoint303.com. That's the easiest way to get in touch with me. You can book a meeting. We can chat, discuss. I mean, I've got James303 is James Rowe 303. That's my Instagram as well as focalpoint303. So real easy.
And for me, it's Elizabeth at Coco Coders. Just think of Coco Chanel, but Coco Coders.
I have the world's longest and strangest name. So Caitlin Locasio King. There's only one of me in this world, I promise. Obviously, since we do social media, we are on all the platforms. So it's Magenta.
Caitlin with a C.
Caitlin with a C and no H, as there was earlier today, or cotillion. So I'm Caitlin Locasio King everywhere, and the company is Magenta Fusion Brandworks everywhere.
It's easiest at ipnadvisors.com or manageyourgaps.com for the book, and I'm most active on LinkedIn, so just look me up there.
And the easiest for me is bethmac.com, or you can go to spacely.media or on LinkedIn. I'm across all the socials, so find me there.
Same with me. I'm across all socials, LinkedIn, Instagram, or you can go to my website, robswymer.com, SWYMER. If you want to harness and unleash those chemicals for your team, I can show you how to do that. And have
Yes,
some fun.
maybe you could show us if we have a couple of minutes.
Yeah, I don't know. Do we have a couple of minutes? Yeah?
Oh, and just one added, it's MACH, not K. Just thinking of that, I'm like, H.
All right, well, let's do something real quick. You want to do a physical movement? Everybody
Yes.
stand up for a minute. This will be fun.
Don't all jump at once. Wow.
Okay, so we call this the Kate Winslet. So this is going to actually really, everybody see the Titanic? Anybody? The guys out there that are not raising their hand, I know you've seen it. Okay. Right? You've seen it. Okay, so this is the Kate Winslet. We're in the front of the boat. And the Kate Winslet is opening up the heart. It's bringing oxytocin through the heart muscle. And it is going to spread love across this room and change the state of this room. Now, the reality of this, the neuroscience backs it up. I can do this in 8 seconds. 8 seconds, you change your state. So are you ready? You can just do what I do, okay? I'm going to put the mic down, unfortunately. But okay, everybody can hear me. So, ground your feet. Put your hands out like Kate Winslet on Titanic. Your head up. Pretend there's a string right here in your sternum bringing you to the heavens, and just enjoy the moment. And release that oxytocin. Again, amazing. 8 seconds. You're going to feel that oxytocin going right across the heart. And there you are. There you go. 8 seconds. Everybody feel that? Yeah? Good job. Great. All right. Thank you.
Forced picture, sorry, everyone.
Oh, we got to
They're my new best friend. What's your name? Best friend. We just met. It's true love. Thank you.
You guys will have to move a little bit this time.
Oh. This way?
There you go. Perfect.
This way. This way?
We literally did that in sync.
I know. See, we built a human connection in like 1 meeting. All right, thank you.
I
Thank you.
have a question.
Yes.
I really like the way that you in person to watch this. the I'm an employee from site. If you're an employer and I'm taking an consultation with the parent, I do work for the kids with autism. And it's my first consultation session in the Zoom. The parent would be like, can I turn off my camera? And we are a small business. We are still growing and expanding. They would be like, is it okay if I turn off my camera and I can ask you questions? But when we start our consultation, we would want to actually look into their facial expressions. Are they willing to do our services or not? How do you cope up with that?
I would say, I'll start first. I would say start by meeting him in the middle initially. I wouldn't be like, thank you. Oh, awesome. Okay, so I would say my answer would be initially to be like, okay, you know what I mean? And like, sure, you can turn your camera off for now for XYZ, but when we get to this part, could you turn it on? It's really helpful for our evaluation. I don't know what verbiage you use. You know what I mean? I think if you do this immediate, no, camera on, that is less than helpful, but you can say, sure, get them a little more comfortable, and then just say what you said to us. It's really important in us figuring out XYZ to have that camera on and to interact better. So that's how I would do it. She said that was perfect.
Yeah, it's just like sometime, like you don't know they would come for your services because they told you to be on camera. Like most of
Right.
the people don't like to be on their Zoom. That's why like how would affect our business. That also like on background it will be going on, right? Each client actually makes a lot of difference for us. So I was thinking from an employer kind of view, will it help?
Do you have a virtual a note taker in your, in an AI note taker in your calls? Okay, well, that would be helpful, but if you did, that would probably scare them away, so I was gonna say, turn that off.
Taking notes,
We
yeah.
don't
Yeah.
have that. And Elizabeth, I have a question for you. As you said that you are doing an coding sessions for the kids. Are you doing for all the kids or just for neurotypical kids? Like how would that work?
All of the kids, however, my son is on the spectrum, and we've found that children on the spectrum or with ADHD tune in very well to coding and thrive in the environment that we're giving them. But a lot of those children don't turn on their cameras, so.
That's why like I have a question. Like, most of the parents would be like, I would not take any virtual session because it's useless and we are paying like, 65, $75 for an hour. How that will be beneficial? Like if you actually like think about COVID time, most of them are like virtual. All the schools were going virtual for 6 months. Like schools is a different thing, and when it comes to one-on-one session, and especially for the special kids, it's really difficult.
Well, we also do teach in schools. The in-person teachers put the kids online, and then they connect with the virtual tutors. And the greatest feedback we've had is that the children that oftentimes don't participate in the classroom, the teachers are like, wow, they've actually turned up. Turned up to school, turned up to be educated, and so it's really switched something on for them. So I think there's an interesting model in the hybrid approach to in-person.
And my only other add to that would be start off without the camera, have the full conversation without the camera, and lead up into something that's on camera. So don't be so rigid that it is our policy, this is the way we do it, because that's just not going to work, right? But it's more of like a permission thing, right? And so as they grant you that permission, then hopefully at some point you could lead to that. But you'll reach a point where you'll say, I have to make a decision one way or the other, and you might make an exception in that point, to be accommodating. So.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I hope that helps. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you very much.